Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer Reiner.
This is the story of how Rob Reiner, one of Hollywood's most beloved directors, and his wife Michelle were found stabbed to death in their Brentwood home, leading to the arrest of their 32-year-old son Nick. New surveillance footage has emerged showing the moment police swarmed Nick near the USC campus just hours after his parents' bodies were discovered. Before we get into what happened that terrible weekend in December, you need to understand who Rob Reiner was and why this story has shaken Hollywood to its core. Rob Reiner wasn't just another director. He was the man behind some of the most quotable, most beloved films in American cinema. If you've ever said, "You can't handle the truth," "I'll have what she's having," or "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die," you're quoting a Rob Reiner film. Born on March 6, 1947, Rob was the son of comedy legend Carl Reiner. He first became famous as an actor, playing Michael Meathead Stivic on All in the Family from 1971 to 1979. He won 2 Emmy Awards for that role, playing the liberal son-in-law who constantly clashed with Carol O'Connor's Archie Bunker. The show explored the generation gap of the late 60s and 70s, and Rob's character became iconic. But it was as a director that Rob Reiner truly made his mark. Critics talk about his golden streak, his first 7 films that represent one of the greatest directing runs in Hollywood history. It started in 1984 with This Is Spinal Tap, one of the first popular mockumentaries, a heavy metal satire that's been preserved in the National Film Registry and influenced countless films and TV shows since. Then came The Sure Thing in 1985, a road trip romantic comedy with John Cusack. In 1986, he directed Stand By Me, the coming-of-age drama based on a Stephen King story that launched the careers of Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell. That film is also in the National Film Registry. 1987 brought us The Princess Bride, the fantasy adventure based on William Goldman's novel that grew into a cult classic over the decades. Inconceivable! As you wish. These lines became part of our cultural vocabulary. The cast included Cary Elwes, Robin Wright, Mandy Patinkin, Andre the Giant, Billy Crystal, and Wallace Shawn. It's another film selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. In 1989, Rob directed When Harry Met Sally, starring Carrie Crystal and Meg Ryan. Written by Nora Ephron, this romantic comedy made $92.8 million at the box office and is considered one of the greatest romantic comedies of all time. It helped lay the foundation for a rom-com boom that lasted more than 15 years. The fake orgasm scene at Katz's Deli, where Rob's own mother, Estelle, delivered the punchline, "I'll have what she's having," became legendary. The film received an Oscar nomination for Ephron's screenplay. There's an interesting story about how When Harry Met Sally ended up with its happy ending. Rob was directing the film while single, having been divorced from his first wife, Penny Marshall, for 10 years. The original script had Harry and Sally not ending up together. But then something happened that changed everything. Michelle Singer came to visit the set as a photographer. The cinematographer, Barry Sonnenfeld, predicted Rob would marry her. Rob later said, "I look over and I see this girl, and whew, I was attracted immediately. I wormed my way into their lunch." Meeting Michelle inspired Rob to change the ending of the film so that Harry and Sally got together. They married in 1989, the same year the film premiered. Rob told The Guardian in 2018, "Originally, Harry and Sally didn't get together, but then I met Michelle, and I thought, okay, I see how this works." Michelle wasn't just Rob's wife. She was his creative partner. Born on March 3, 1955, Michelle was a professional photographer who had actually photographed Donald Trump for the cover of The Art of the Deal back in 1987. She worked as the special photographer on Rob's 1990 film Misery, the horror thriller based on Stephen King novel where Kathy Bates won the Academy Award for Best Actress at age 42. Michelle became co-president of Castle Rock Entertainment, the production company Rob founded in 1987. She produced films like Shock and Awe in 2017, Albert Brooks' Defending My Life in 2023, God and Country in 2024, and Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues in 2025. Rob's golden streak continued with Misery in 1990, starring Jane Can and Kathy Bates, who delivered the chilling line, "I'm your #1 fan." Then came A Few Good Men in 1992, the military courtroom drama based on Aaron Sorkin's 1989 play. Starring Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, it was the biggest hit of Reiner's career and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. It received 4 Oscar nominations total. "You Can't Handle the Truth" became one of the most quoted movie lines ever. Rob continued directing films like The American President in 1995 and The Bucket List in 2007, which popularized that term we all use now. He received 9 Golden Globe nominations over his career, 1 Academy Award nomination, and 1 BAFTA nomination. He got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1999 and received the Chaplin Award at Film at Lincoln in 2014. But Rob and Michelle were more than Hollywood power players. They were activists who used their platform to fight for causes they believed in. Together, they co-founded I Am Your Child Foundation in 1997 to raise awareness about early childhood development. In 2004, they established Parents Action for Children for parental education and advocacy. Michelle's mother was a Holocaust survivor, which inspired much of her social justice work. They founded the American Foundation for Equal Rights and helped organize and fund the legal challenges to California's Proposition 8, the same-sex marriage ban. They worked with Dustin Lance Black on the play 8 about the federal trial that overturned Prop 8. Rob was a longtime Democratic donor and an outspoken critic of Donald Trump. In a 2017 Variety interview, he called Trump mentally unfit and the single most unqualified human being to ever assume the presidency. He warned in 2024 that Trump's leadership could push the U.S. towards full-on autocracy. Rob and Michelle explored Trump's ties to Christian nationalism in their documentary God and Country. Rob and Michelle had 3 children together: Jake, born in 1991, Nick, born in 1993, and Romy, born in 1997. Rob also had a daughter, Tracy Reiner, from his marriage to Penny Marshall, whom he adopted. And this is where the story takes its darkest turn, because Nick Reiner had been struggling with addiction for most of his life. Nick first went to rehab at age 15. Over the years, he went in and out of rehab at least 17 times. He publicly spoke about periods of homelessness during his addiction struggles. In a 2016 interview with People magazine, Nick talked about spending weeks sleeping on the streets when he didn't want to go to rehab. In 2016, Nick co-wrote a semi-autobiographical film called Being Charlie with his father directing. The plot centered on a young man struggling with addiction, in and out of rehab, loosely based on Nick's own experiences and his relationship with his parents. Carrie Elwes, who had starred in The Princess Bride, played the father character. Rob told the LA Times in 2015 that making the film was incredibly difficult. He said, "It was very, very hard going through it the first time with these painful highs and lows, and then making the movie dredged it all up again." Both Rob and Michelle told the Times that rehab programs had been ineffective for Nick. Rob said, "When Nick told us that it wasn't working for him, we wouldn't listen. We were desperate, and because the people had diplomas on their wall, we listened to them when we should have been listening to our son." Nick promoted the film at the 2016 Toronto Film Festival and did an AOL interview with his father. He told People magazine, "Now I've been home for a really long time, and I've sort of gotten acclimated back to being in LA and being around my family." But the struggles didn't end. By December 2025, Nick was 32 years old, living in his parents' guest house at their Brentwood home. According to TMZ, Rob and Michelle were at their wits' end over Nick's mental health and substance abuse issues. Michelle told friends, "We've tried everything." The parents wanted Nick to return to a rehab facility, but Nick wanted treatment at home. The family had recently seemed happy together. They all attended the LA premiere of Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, on September 9, 2025. After a Thanksgiving beach getaway, daughter Romy posted that she was thankful for my family. Then came the weekend that would end in tragedy. On Saturday evening, December 13, 2025, Rob and Michelle attended a holiday party at Conan O'Brien's home in Pacific Palisades. Rob asked O'Brien if their son Nick could attend, saying he wanted to keep an eye on him, according to Rolling Stone. At the party, which included guests like Jane Fonda and Bill Hader, Nick exhibited what witnesses called antisocial behavior. He wandered around, stared at people, and asked guests if they were famous. At one point, Nick interrupted a conversation involving comedian Bill Hader. When someone told him the conversation was private, he just stared and then stormed off. Rob and Nick got into what TMZ described as a very loud argument at the party. Eventually, Rob and Michelle left and apologized to O'Brien for the disruption. What happened next has been pieced together through police reports, surveillance footage, and witness statements. At 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, December 14, Nick checked into the Pierside Santa Monica Hotel. Hotel staff would later discover the shower full of blood and bed sheets hanging over the window. Early that morning, in the early hours of December 14, according to District Attorney Nathan Hochman, Rob and Michelle Reiner were killed in their Brentwood home on South Chadbourne Avenue. They were stabbed to death, suffering multiple stab wounds. Rob was 78 years old. Michelle was 68. It was their daughter Romy, who was 28, who discovered her parents' bodies. She immediately called the police. Then she called Billy Crystal and his wife Janice, and they came to the house. The Los Angeles Fire Department responded to a medical aid call at around 3:30 to 3:40 p.m. that afternoon, but Rob and Michelle were already dead. At approximately 9:15 p.m. on Sunday evening, about 15 miles away from the Brentwood home, Nick Reiner was arrested in Exposition Park near the USC campus. And this is where the new surveillance footage comes in. The New York Post and ABC7 obtained surveillance video that shows Nick's movements that evening and his arrest. In the footage, you can see Nick wearing a dark baseball cap and a red backpack. He enters a gas station convenience store in Exposition Park. He walks around the store, waits in line, and buys a beverage. You can actually see a law enforcement officer visible in the store while Nick is there.
You don't want to set me off.
Additional footage shows Nick walking as an LAPD vehicle races into the area. The surveillance video captures the moment when Nick puts his hands up as police swarm him. He was arrested without incident at Exposition Boulevard and Vermont Avenue near a metro station. Photos released by the LAPD show Nick handcuffed and surrounded by officers with the metro train station visible in the background. The arrest was made by LAPD Gang and Narcotics Division officers, along with a U.S. Marshals task force. Nick is 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighs approximately 230 pounds. In the surveillance footage and arrest photos, he appears calm as officers take him into custody. On Monday, December 15, Nick Reiner was formally booked on suspicion of murder. LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell confirmed the arrest at a news conference. Nick was initially listed with a $4 million bail, but that was later changed to no bail. The family released a statement through Variety on December 15. Quote, "It is with profound sorrow that we announce the tragic passing of Michelle and Rob Reiner. We are heartbroken by this sudden loss, and we ask for privacy during this unbelievably difficult time." Rob's daughter Tracy Reiner told NBC News, "I came from the greatest family ever. I don't know what to say. I'm in shock." On Tuesday, December 17, Nick Reiner was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special special
old script that we
circumstances.
were,
The special
maybe there
circumstance
was some
was
good stuff in
multiple
there. We
murders.
went in and
There was
we looked
also a
at
special
one page and
allegation
we were like,
that
this
he
is terrible.
personally
And
used
then,
a dangerous and deadly
yeah, I
weapon,
just sort of wrote a new
specifically
pilot,
a
then
knife.
got around to him
These charges
saying,
carry a
would you like to make a
maximum
movie out of
sentence
this?
of
And we were
life
like,
in
we don't know how
prison
to do
without
that.
the possibility
And
of
then we just
parole
tried to do it.
or the
Was
death
it cathartic
penalty.
in
District
a way to
Attorney
revisit the
Nathan
journey?
Hochman
Yeah,
said
of
no
course.
decision has yet been made
Yeah, I mean, we went
on
through a
whether
lot. I mean,
prosecutors will seek the death penalty.
We didn't
Nick
do
was
it
scheduled to be
cathartic, but
arraigned
it
Tuesday
turned
morning,
out that that's
but he
what
did not
happened.
appear
I mean,
in court.
it
His
forced me
attorney,
to
Alan Jackson,
understand a
who
lot more of
previously
what
helped
Nick was going
defend
through, and I
Karen
think it
Reed
forced
in
him to
Massachusetts,
see
confirmed
what I
that
was
Nick
going
was
through, and
not
that
medically
brought us
cleared
closer
to
together.
appear.
And
Jackson would
during
not
the process
specify
of
the medical
working on
issue,
the film, it
only
took about a
describing it
year
as
just working on
procedural.
the script.
The
first
arraignment
draft
was
they wrote was like
rescheduled for
190
Wednesday
pages. They had
morning,
thrown
though the DA's
everything in
office
that
said
they
it
had
would
gone
be
through.
at an
Manifesto.
unspecified
Yeah, and
later date.
as we shaped it
Nick
and
remains
changed it,
held
the whole
without bail
process,
at the Twin Towers Correctional
got
Facility
us-
in
brought us
downtown
closer
Los
together 'cause
Angeles
we started
County.
understanding
The
each
investigation
other a
is
little bit
ongoing
better.
by the
I'm not going to listen to
LAPD
you tell me
Robbery
what a drug
Homicide
addict I
Division.
am.
Tough, Dan.
Careful of one of your
Authorities have not
constituents now. You
released
don't want to lose
any
the
public
governor's race by
statement
one vote.
about
You
a
can either head
possible
back to
motive.
treatment or live on the streets.
The
It's your
reaction
I
from
can't tell
Hollywood and the
exactly
political
what got me
world
into them
has been
besides the fact that I thought
overwhelming.
they were really cool,
President Joe
and I just
Biden
wanted
and
to do
First
them.
Lady Jill
But,
Biden released
I
a
think I
statement
heard this
saying,
question a
"We
lot,
take
and I think
solace
the
in knowing
only
their
answer I
work
can
will
give
live
for
on for
wanting to tell a
generations
story
to
like
come."
this is that
President
it's even more
Barack Obama
powerful to
and
tell it
Michelle
about someone
Obama
who
said they were
is going
heartbroken,
through
noting
this
that
and
Rob's
they're given
achievements
everything
in
and they're
film
in an
and
opulent
television
situation,
gave us some of our
and
most
they're still
cherished
deciding
stories
to
on
go to
screen.
the drugs. And
Beneath
that's
all
more
the stories he
powerful than
produced
some-
was a
in
deep
our
belief
opinion, that's
in
the
the
only story
goodness
that we
of
know.
people.
We don't know any other story.
Michelle Obama
And
told
I
Jimmy
think,
Kimmel
you know,
she was
it
supposed to
does-
see
it
the
cuts
Reiners on Sunday night.
across
She said,
socioeconomic
in a
boundaries.
time
I mean-
when there's
I mean,
not
if you
a
look
lot
what's
of
going
courage
on now
going
with the heroin
on, they were the
epidemic
kind of
around the
people
country,
who were
it's-
ready to
it's,
put
you know,
their
invading
actions
white,
behind what they
middle-class
cared about.
suburban neighborhoods. So
President Bill
it doesn't
Clinton and
really,
Hillary Clinton
it
called
crosses
the
all
deaths
economic
heartbreaking
boundaries,
and pointed to the Reiners' active
you know,
citizenship
difficulties that you
in defense
have,
of an inclusive
are
democracy.
Not, you know,
California Governor
relegated to
Nathan
only,
Newsom,
you know,
Representative
people who
Nancy
don't have-
Pelosi,
who
and
are
LA Mayor
unprivileged,
Karen
you
Bass
know.
all
How bad
released
did it get at
statements
home
mourning the
between
loss.
the two of you?
It's
Mayor Bass
reflected in
said,
the movie
"This
where
is a
the
devastating
father
loss
character
for
talks
our
about
city
how,
and our
you know,
country."
he didn't know
Rob
what to do,
Reiner's
so he listened to
contributions
anybody who had a desk
reverberate
and a
throughout
diploma
American
to
culture
do
and society.
exactly what you're talking
From Hollywood,
about.
the
But
tributes
truth of the
poured
matter
in.
is, you
The
have to be
family
who
of
you
Norman
are.
Lair,
And I
Rob's
made
mentor,
mistakes
who
in
had
that
actually
I
sold
didn't
Rob
go
and
with my
Michelle the
gut
Brentwood
instinct
home
in the
where they
field. And
died,
I know
said they were
Nick better
devastated.
than, you
That
know,
home
some
had previously been owned
expert
by
who's
Henry
never
Fonda
met him. And I
before the
think
Lair family.
had I listened
Jerry
to my own
O'Connell,
instincts,
who
I would have
starred as a
done
child
a
in
lot
Stand
better
By
by
Me,
Nick. But,
said,
you know, you do
"Rob
what
was
you
like
do.
a
You're
father
parent,
to
and
me.
you think,
Everything
if
I
my kid
have is
running out
because
into
of
the
Rob."
street is gonna get hit
It's
by a
just
truck,
a
and
sad,
you
shocking
wanna keep
day.
them safe. So
Jerry
you do what
Seinfeld
they
paid
tell you. You
tribute
feel
by
you're at
noting their
mercy.
collaboration on
But
Seinfeld,
what I
saying,
feel
"Our show would have
after all of
never
this
happened
is
without him."
It's not about
Demi
punishing.
Moore posted,
If somebody
"No words."
has, you
Kevin
know, is
Bacon
struggling
teared
and
up
has
remembering
difficulties,
Reiner.
you don't punish
Rita
him for
Wilson
that.
wrote,
And I
"Michelle was
think
an
all of these- a
enormously
lot of these
talented
programs feel
photographer
like
whose
you-
eye
you know,
applied
the
not only
kid
to
is
what
being
she
punished,
captured
and I
on
don't
film,
think that's
but
a
also
great
to her
way to
own
go. I mean,
personal
how do you
aesthetic."
feel about it,
Her
Nick?
work as a
About what part
producer
of, about
focused
what I
on
was just
social
saying about
justice
the
and
idea
creating awareness
of,
of
you know,
our
the
world.
tough love and
She
all
was
of that
wry,
stuff.
funny,
You know, I'm here, so
opinionated, but
it
also
worked.
reasonable
Never
and
about the
self-reflective.
drugs. All I ever wanted
Dustin
was
Lance
a way to
Black,
kill
who
the
worked with
noise.
Rob and
Getting
Michelle
sober
on
is a
marriage and
self-esteem.
quality efforts,
You gotta
said
help
the
yourself
world has
first.
lost two
For
of its
everyone, it's
greatest
different. For me, the
champions
noise
of
was
justice, love,
basically,
and equality.
you know,
Kelly
living in the
Robinson,
family that I
president of
live
the
in
Human
and
Rights
catching
Alliance,
heat for that sort of
reflected on their
stuff. And
unwavering
also
allyship,
just-
For being a
saying
writer?
so
I
many
guess,
in
I mean,
our
that's-
movement
people would
remember
like to think
how
that's a
Rob
real
and
bigger
Michelle
deal than it
organized their
actually is, but
peers,
it's really like,
brought
I was an
strategists
emotional
and
kid
lawyers
who had
together,
problems, films. And
Lori
I just
David,
was
an
not so
environmental
fond of myself,
activist and
so I
filmmaker
kinda,
who was close friends with
had
the couple,
problems in that
said
way.
Rob and
But in terms
Michelle,
of the thing you were saying
always
before,
referred
it's
to
like,
as Rob and
I
Michelle,
think
were an
that
extraordinary
our
couple
relationship was
who
not
worked
as it
side
was
by
portrayed in
side
the
to
film.
make
Like,
the
there
world a
were
safer,
this
fairer,
sort of, like,
and more
holding the
just
line and
society.
being tough, but, like,
There was
we didn't
one
ever
response
argue,
that
like,
drew
quite
widespread
like that. I mean,
criticism.
we did,
On
I
Monday,
guess, to a
December
degree,
16,
but it was
Donald
never,
Trump blamed Rob Reiner's
He was
outspoken
fiery. You
opposition
don't
to
seem
him
very
for
fiery
the
to me. You
couple's
seem
killings in a
crazy.
social
I
media
get
post.
crazy.
The
Yeah.
claim was
You don't wanna set me
completely
off.
unsubstantiated and
No.
drew
So
both
criticism
upstairs.
even
we're
from some
both,
prominent
we
conservatives.
both can get
You
pretty.
It's a
roll
bitter
easily
irony
either,
we can
so-
both
that
get
Michelle
pretty
had
hot, and
photographed
there were
Trump
times
for the
when we did
cover
get
of The
hot.
Art of the Deal
But,
back
But
in
he wasn't, like, cold like
1987,
that. He was very
decades
loving and
before Rob
compassionate. I
became
just
one of
think that he
Trump's
didn't
most
really know
vocal
what to do.
critics.
What
So,
about Mom?
what do we
I
take
didn't
away
go
from
to
this
either of
tragedy?
them because neither of them
This
believed
case
a word I
highlights
said,
the
but it
ongoing
was sort of,
struggles
like,
that
comforting
families
to talk
face
to
with
her because
addiction
she
and
was a
mental
little bit
health.
more
Rob
touch
and
with
Michelle
her
were
emotions
open
and how
about
she
Nick's
felt
struggles,
about it.
even
And he
making a
was
film
sort of
about
trying
it.
to,
They
you know,
tried everything.
follow orders, I
17
guess.
times
You went
sending
to-
their
how many
son
times
to
did you go to
rehab.
rehab? You said- is it
Michelle
18
told
times?
friends,
Yeah.
"We've tried everything."
Yeah.
They
But it had to
questioned the
come from you,
effectiveness
so
of
what was
rehab
rock bottom?
facilities and expressed
There
frustration
wasn't
that they had
one. It's
listened
all
to
rock bottom.
professionals
It all
with
sucked.
diplomas on their
When
wall
did you?
instead of
what made
listening
you
to their
finally
son.
make it not a 19th?
But despite their wealth, their
I got
connections, their
just
love,
sick
and
of
their
it. I mean,
efforts,
it's hard to
they
believe that
couldn't
you wouldn't
find
get
a
sick after
solution that
5
worked.
of them, but I
And
mean,
now
after 18,
they're
I
gone.
was like, okay, I'm pretty
The
bored of
surveillance
this.
footage
It
of
wasn't like
Nick's
I wanted back
arrest
to be-
shows a
I was
man
like, I'm sick
calmly
of
buying a
this
beverage
cycle.
at a
It's
convenience
using
store
drugs,
hours after his
it being
parents
so
were found
temporary
stabbed to death.
fix, then
It
going
shows him
back
putting
into a
his
place
hands
for
up
months on
without
end, then
resistance
getting
as
out
police
and
move
just,
in.
you
It
know,
captures a
rinse-wash
moment
my
that
life.
families touched by
Do you
addiction and
believe,
mental
and they'll
health
tell you,
crises
you're
might
gonna die
recognize
if you
the
continue on this
calm
way. Do
after
you
the
think you would
storm, the moment when
die,
the
or did
worst
you
has already
Yeah.
happened.
still feel invincible?
Rob Reiner
No,
gave
I
us
mean,
some of the
of
most
course there's
joyful,
that, level
quotable,
of feeling that
beloved
way, but
films in
I
American
would,
cinema.
you know, the rate
He
I
and
was
Michelle
going
fought
was
for
probably
social
not
justice,
great.
for
Didn't
marriage
end up great.
equality, for early
feel like
childhood
did you
development.
ever get close?
They used their
Yeah.
platform and their wealth to
Sure.
try to
How
make
do
the
you,
world
how do you
better.
manage it
But
now?
they
Do you
couldn't
go to
save their
AA
own
meetings
son.
regularly?
And in the end,
I
they
found
may
that
have
those,
become his victims.
weren't as helpful
As
for
of
me
now,
as
Nick
things
Reiner
like
awaits
staying
trial for 2
active and,
counts
like,
of
you know,
first-degree murder with
replacing,
special
like,
circumstances.
not just, yeah,
The death
replacing
penalty
the
is on the
activity that you
table,
were doing
though
before
no
with
decision
stuff
has
that's
yet been
healthier,
made.
like
The case
working
is still
out,
under
if you can afford
investigation,
it, going to
and
a
many questions
therapist,
remain unanswered.
as well as, like,
3
you know,
of Rob
having a
Reiner's
good,
films
you
have been
know,
selected
support
for the
group
National
of
Film
friends.
Registry,
I have that,
preserved
which is
for their
lucky, and not
cultural,
everybody
historical,
has that.
and aesthetic
And I have supportive
contributions to
parents.
American
And
cinema.
you also found
His
work that you
quotes
li- I
live
mean, you
on in
found his
our
writing,
everyday
and that's
conversations.
something that, you know,
His films
he
will be
likes to do,
watched and
he
loved
works
for
with his friends doing
generations.
that, so.
But
Can
Rob
you
and
be
Michelle
in a room
Reiner
now
died
where
violently
people
in their
are
Brentwood
drinking
home,
or
in the house
smoking
they
pot
bought
or
from
something,
Norman
or do
Lair,
you
the house that
consciously
Henry
avoid those
Fonda
situations?
once owned.
No, I want to be.
Stabbed
I
to
want to
death,
be there when
allegedly
they're
by
doing
the
that,
son
because I don't
they
want to feel
tried so
alienated,
hard
like
to
I'm
help.
some,
This
you know,
is the
special
story of
case,
how
or
a
I don't wanna feel
Hollywood
any
legend and his
different or
wife
alienated.
met a
I just wanna
tragic
be
end,
part of the
and how
crew
new
again, you know?
surveillance footage
Yeah.
shows the moment their son was taken into custody.